Hi there, Working Homeschool Mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And this is episode number 119 of the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you'll find lots of episodes that are going to help you on your Working Homeschool Mom journey. And a little bit about me. I'm a coach for new Working Homeschool Moms, and I help new Working Homeschool Moms like you figure out the messy beginnings so that you can take your first steps with confidence. Today's episode is a little bit different to normal, but it's definitely very much linked to what I talk about, what I coach about, and that is an element of self-care that we maybe do not speak about so much. I welcome Andrea Caprio, who is an expert in emotional eating and a master transformational nutrition coach. And we chat about emotional eating and wellness and how that is linked to self-care, and especially in terms of being a busy mom, a busy working mom, and a busy working homeschool mom. Andrea shares some really useful tips that you can implement immediately to start building a better relationship with food. I found this episode really, really useful, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. But before we get to the episode, I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Or you could forward this episode to a new working homeschool mom who struggles with her relationship with food, and I'm sure it will give her some guidance in her journey. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hi there, and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm your host, and I am a podcaster, a speaker, a writer, and a homeschooling coach, specifically for working homeschool moms. I've been homeschooling my neurodivergent twin boys since 2017, and I've been a working homeschool mom since 2017. So I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom. I cover things like time management, homeschooling, mindset, and lots of other juicy topics like that. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. And I also welcome experts who can help you on your working homeschool mom journey. I have lots of ways to support you, so be sure to check them out in the show notes. You can download my time audit as your first step to managing your time better. I have a Facebook group for working homeschool moms that you can join as well. And be sure to sign up to my newsletter for weekly updates. And if you need additional support, you can join the WHM Collective, which is a supportive community of working homeschool moms where we delve deeper into topics that are going to help you thrive as a working homeschool mom. Or if you need one-to-one support, be sure to book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here, and I know you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Working homeschool mom, I know how overwhelming it can be to choose a math curriculum for your homeschool. That's why I'd like to tell you about the online math curriculum we've been using for years, ctcmath.com. As far as math curriculums go, it has loads of great features that solve lots of the math issues we've had, and I know a lot of homeschooling families have. Here are just a few of the many features that we really like. Questions are adaptive, which means the interactive questions change in difficulty depending on the student's ability. The program uses a smart algorithm that tracks the student's progress and delivers questions based on their exact needs. The student doesn't even know this is happening, helping them to build confidence and master math concepts. Concepts are delivered through video tutorials and summaries which are clear, complete, and easy to follow. It's like having your very own teacher. This ensures your children understand something before they're asked to practice it. And then for us parents, CTC Math has extensive reports which are so valuable in monitoring your child's progress and spotting any gaps. And they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee if this curriculum is not for you and your family. CTC will provide a full refund, no questions asked. But I think the most important thing is a whole lot less stress when it's math time for both parents and kids. You get to outsource math with confidence, and your kids get a fantastic tailor-made program that makes learning and mastering math enjoyable and positive. Visit CTC Math today to start your free trial. CTC Math is also offering you, listener, an amazing special. When you go to ctcmath.com/MLH, you can get a half price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com com/MLH. Today, I'm welcoming a fantastic guest onto the show, Andrea Caprio, an expert in emotional eating and a master transformational nutrition coach, developed her food freedom formula to help busy people struggling with cravings and emotional eating lose 20 pounds or more without dramatic changes to their diets or workouts. And it's Andrea's mission to help others break free from self-sabotage, heal their relationship with food, and figure out how they want to live life on their own terms. Yes, yes, and yes to everything. Welcome to the podcast, Andrea. I'm really excited to chat to you today.
Charlotte, I'm super excited as well. Welcome to everybody joining us here today. Let's get started. I was really looking forward to this amazing podcast, and being a guest here is really an honor. Thank you so much.
All right, so this episode might be a little bit different to our usual topics, but I think it's such an important one to cover, to dive into. How we eat is such a big part of self-care, I'm a huge advocate of self-care. Working homeschool moms really need to look after themselves, and eating is definitely a huge part of that. So today we're going to be talking about food freedom and conquering emotional eating for busy working homeschool moms. I am super excited to dive in. So maybe before we get into the rest of the episode, maybe you can share your background and what kind of inspired you to focus on this particular aspect, focus on conquering emotional eating for busy women.
Great question, Charlotte. So, I think almost everybody in our field, we come through that through our own history there. So, I have two children. They are now, in meanwhile, adult children. I have had my struggles, of course, bringing them up somehow, like we all have, right? And at that time, when they were still smaller, there was a particular time. It was really quite difficult. I felt like I'm not doing my job as a mom. I was not always very present. I worked from home. I tried to cope with them and all that. And often I was probably not the best mom, to be honest. And at that time, I think I was very imbalanced, just feeling overwhelmed with all the challenges. And I realized eventually that I was eating more sugar than I thought, because I thought no, I'm eating quite healthy and everything is all good and so on. And I realized, oh no, there was a sugar here, in my coffee, and then a cookie, and then, more coffee with sugar or whatever it was, right? And it added up. And that I was not that healthy. And I started having various health issues at that stage. I had bloating, I had weekly migraine headaches, I had hormonal issues to the point that I had 3 times to have my fibroids removed, and several doctors telling me about hysterectomies and whatever, which I opposed at the time. I was always tired. I had some weight issues and acne, all kind of thing. It just kind of added up. And I came across a healthier way of eating at the time. It was a detox. I followed it, and suddenly, literally everything improved. Some things immediately and something obviously over the time. And at that stage, I realized the power of nutrition. That was when you have those aha moments where I say, oh my goodness, what I'm onto. And at the time, I had just moved to Miami, and I saw how unhealthy people were there, a lot of overweight people, unhealthy eating, and so on. And as it is, I must have Googled something, and suddenly Facebook started showing me an ad for a nutrition school. And I said, hey, that's actually something interesting. And, I wanted really to help other people. I love helping other people, has always been my thing. And so anyway, I did a research. I looked for a really great nutrition school. I did it was a holistic approach, which resonated with me. So I did first my basic education there, and then the master program, where I had several specializations in gut health, hormonal health, weight loss, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and I forgot something. So I really started then working, and I opened my practice, and that was about 8-9 years ago, and I've never looked back. Meanwhile, I'll help hundreds and hundreds of people. So what I realized after some time that many people come to see me with weight issues. So they want to lose weight and they're struggling. They've tried diet after diet after diet. And that most of them, they are like, they go to the doctor says, hey, you have, eat healthier or whatever, or do more exercise. And we all know we should be eating healthier, right? Or do more exercise, but it's not that easier. So I really focused on since that on emotional eating. So when people struggle there, they know what they should be doing, but they're not getting there, and helping them to overcome those struggles so they can flow towards that and eventually go towards lasting weight loss, because we don't want yet another diet. We want really lasting weight loss.
Yes, that's such a good point because I know I've been through a million diets and it's often the emotional aspect of it that is something that I know I need to conquer because it's so true. We all know what we need to do, but we're just not doing it. It's such an important point that. If we look at the demographic of busy moms, busy homeschool moms, busy working moms, what are some of the key factors contributing to this emotional eating in your experience?
Okay, there are always different ones, and there can be many. There can be single ones. There can be sometimes very easy, sometimes a little bit more difficult. And obviously, I work very much in a personalized way with people because I believe we all are different, right? Depends a little bit on our genetics, of course, on our lifestyle, all these kind of things. But given that, a couple of things, what I really focus on is, so first of all, I really look at, so especially with emotional eating, right? So the one thing I'm really looking at is what are you really hungry for? What are you trying to fill with food? Because when we emotionally eat, stress eating, giving into cravings or so, it's never about being hungry, right? It's never about the food per se. We are just trying to fulfill some void that we have in our life with food. Some other people maybe with alcohol, drugs, but I mean, we are talking here about food. And what I found is most of the time that especially moms struggle, right, is one is obviously stress. Okay. So very often we just try to find a coping mechanism to deal with stress. So instead of dealing with stress in a healthy way, we might go on a binge, right? Or we might, just try to get a little bit of energy or something like that, right? When we're overly stressed through food. And of course, that's a short-term result, but never a long-term solution, right? The other thing very often that I see is like, especially in the end, towards the end of the day, is like we are exhausted, right? The whole day we've worked, we've taken care of our kids, we homeschooled them, we've been doing the shopping or whatever it is, right? And come 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever the time is, we are just like, oh, we are completely exhausted. And basically the only thing we can do is slouch in front of TV or, on a table or something. And then usually we eat. Sometimes also I find this, oh, I've worked so hard the whole day, or I've been busy the whole day. I need a reward. That can be as well, right? Then, of course, there are the emotional pick-me-ups, right? So I'm sad or anxious or worried or whatever it is. So these are sort of the negative aspects, but then there are also the positive aspects we should not forget. And a lot of people forget that, like the birthday parties of our children, right? Or getting together with friends or whatever. I remember, I mean, at the time when my kids were small, I got together very regularly with some neighborhood friends of mine who had children, similar age and all that. And yeah, we would definitely emotionally eat. There was also wine involved, to be honest. But anyway, so, there are things like where we kind of tried the social, there's the social aspect of it, where, we go together and we have this kind of emotional eating.
Yes, so I think many, me included, many moms are probably nodding their heads and saying yes, yes to all those things, especially working moms, working homeschool moms. A day can be a lot. There are many, many, many things, elements that go into any given day. And it's true towards the end of the day, you're like, okay, I'm done now. But what are some actionable tips that moms can take or some things that they can do so that they can avoid this type of eating, that they can avoid feeding their emotions or eating their emotions, as we say?
Okay, so yeah, I love sharing things that one immediately can implement, because again, otherwise, it just stays there and it's yet another thing that people struggle to break through. So the first actionable tip for me is always to become aware. Right. Awareness, I think, is the most important part. Like, I mentioned earlier, I thought I was eating quite healthy and I realized I had more sugar than I had, right? That became eventually an awareness. So when you start becoming aware, then you can start tweaking it, right? So, how can you become aware, right? I mean, we might have little thoughts here and there, but it's not really awareness. So, what I would suggest is if you think that you might be an emotional eater, chances are you're right. Have a little notebook with you or use your phone or whatever it is and write down every day or every time you eat emotionally or every time you eat or at least every time you eat unplanned. We have planned eating, which is normally our breakfast, lunch, dinner. Okay. We might plan a snack. I plan my snacks as well. So there's no unwanted eating. So either unplanned eating or just snacking out of that, or just note down actually all your eating you do and do that for a few days, maybe a week or so. And then look for patterns, right? And you might find out that if maybe every day at around 4 o'clock you start eating, right? And so you have those patterns that might be quite visible, or it might be each time after you picked up your children, or I don't know if you're working, maybe after your boss is calling or something like that. So you will find there are triggers and patterns. So you want to look for the triggers, but you also want to look for the feeling around it, right? Do you feel maybe sad, stressed, whatever it is, or also for your hunger level? Are you really hungry, right? I have, for example, a scale of hunger levels, which I teach my clients to work with, right? I have also a really very good table. It differentiates between emotional eating and real hunger, right? There are certain differentiators. So, you can kind of checklist either yes or no, and you can know, are you really hungry or is it actually an emotional hunger? Awareness is the first part to really having something practical that you can start with that immediately sets you up. Once you have that awareness, then you can start off finding other techniques, right? So let's assume, you have every day at 4 o'clock, you're hungry for something, right? And in fact, you may be just missing some comfort, right? So it's maybe that you're just a little bit down and the only thing you need is comfort because that's what the food represents. So then what you can do is maybe just call a friend or meet up with a friend, right? Or maybe journal or get a hug from your child or, whatever it is. But do something that brings you whatever is missing. Or maybe just you need some water. Very often, so we're not hungry, but we are thirsty and we mistake that cue for hunger. And that's why we eat. I invite everybody to drink because that's maybe just something you're missing right now because you're listening so intensively here. So you're thirsty. So it might be that you need a walk or, whatever it is. So look for these things that you can immediately implement. When you implement something, always start with something super small. So that's the third really important tip. A lot of people, let's say they want to, implement an exercise routine or eating healthier or avoid the snacking or whatever it is, the emotional eating. They go like all in an hour of exercise, eating only vegetables or, whatever it is. No, it's not going to work, right? So just start with a small little tiny step. And I teach that when I work with my clients. I have a group coaching program, for example. I teach really how to start with a tiny step and then build on it and so on. So that's really important. And then the next step, and that would be the next step really, and I cannot go too long here because that is a very individual and takes a bit longer, but it's the most important. And it's sort of 80% of your result is to find out the real root cause of your emotional eating. Right. Now, there we're getting very deep, and I don't know how many time we have here, but this is basically something, I would recommend really to work with somebody, a practitioner, a coach, somebody like me or so, who really can go deep and find out or help you to find out the physical root cause and also the emotional or spiritual root cause of your emotional eating. There can be maybe trauma from the past, or there might be some hormonal imbalances, etc. I mean, there's so many different reasons, and that finding that out will in the end help you to find or to get to lasting results.
Yes, and I think really delving deep into something like that can help so many aspects of your life as well if you're going to dig into the past, into past traumas and things like that. And yes, we cannot underestimate the power of hormones at all. That is a very strong force in our lives, for sure.
Very true.
How would you define wellness in the context of addressing emotional eating habits?
So when I work with my clients, as I mentioned, many or most of them probably they've gone through diets after diets after diets, yo-yo dieting, restrictive dieting, extensive exercise routines, whatever. But whatever they are all very extreme, restrictive or very extreme methods, right? And first of all, those methods usually are literally unhealthy. So they would be unhealthy if you would continue them long term. Some of those diets are really crazy, like restricting calories or food group, cutting completely out food groups or, whatever they are. So for me, that's not wellness, okay? Because basically it's an imbalance. So for me, wellness is a balance. So first of all, wellness is for me a way of incorporating a healthy lifestyle into your life. And when I say that, it's something you can identify, you enjoy, and it doesn't feel like work to do it or an effort or losing out or something. I mean, I really embrace my lifestyle and I teach that obviously my clients. And I don't eat 100% healthy. I do have my glass of wine from time to time. It's not often nowadays. I realize it's not that good. We do have at home sort of a cheat day where my husband goes a little bit more all in than I do. But, I have maybe once a month a pizza and I have sometimes a pasta and I have like a croissant or something like that. But I don't have it extensively. During the week, like 80 to 90% of my time, I enjoy my salad. I have in the morning my smoothie and the evening is normally a soup or some balanced, protein with vegetable or something like that. And that's something I literally enjoy because it makes me feel good. If I eat extensively a pizza, pasta, cream stuff and whatever, I just don't feel good anymore. I mean, my body learned to listen and understand the cues and it makes me feel good. And for me, that's wellness. I think it's a personal thing. As I say, we have the wheel of life. I don't know if you know about that, but it's the different areas that need to be also balanced, right? So it's not only about nutrition and exercise. It's also about our social life, about spirituality, our environment, our career, our family, our love life. All these areas are super important. And I think that's having a balance in there. That's for me wellness.
No, that's a great explanation. I love that. And then, as I said in the intro, that you have a food freedom formula. So food freedom is kind of a phrase that's really around a lot now. It sounds wonderful, obviously food freedom, but what does that mean in practical terms if you practice food freedom or if you have a feeling of food freedom?
Food freedom is not being controlled by food and having a good relationship to food or with food and with yourself, right? So basically, food is what the role of food is to nourish you, right? Food is there to, yes, taste good, obviously. We want to enjoy our food and there is healthy food that tastes super good. But most of all, food is there to nourish us, right? To provide us with macronutrients and micronutrients and in a healthy way, obviously. So that's the role of food. And that's what we should have. That should be the relationship with food. I think when we have that, then we have achieved food freedom. On the other hand, we want also really to have a good relationship with ourselves, which means like love ourselves, have a good health, self-confidence, self-care, all these kind of things. And especially I think as moms, and I had times I was completely lacking of self-care, right? Self-confidence as well, by the way. Self-love was okay, but self-confidence and self-care was lacking. And I probably 95% of the moms I'm working with lack that, because as a mom, we are used to put everybody else before us. And I had that. I remember really a time in my life when my kids were still small. I've always looked after them, and I became really resentful, really resentful. And at the time, I had all these changes, and I really started, working with coaches. I had a really great community supporting me, women around me. And I started putting myself first. I remember I heard some not so nice comments by some people around me about that, so sort of being egoistical. But I was suddenly a so much better mother because I was there for my children, because I had filled up my tank. So that is a very important thing, because if you run always on 100 per hour, your tank gets empty. And if you don't fill up your tank, you have nothing to give anymore. And that's usually when our children are in tantrum, because they're just mirroring our empty tankness.
Yes, that is such a good point. And I mean, I think we hear it a lot though, but when you reach that stage, I think that first step is the awareness, like you said, right? You need to build up awareness, because that's how you're going to be able to, take that first step in the right direction. And I know it can be hard when you're in that stressed feeling to kind of take that first step, but it's really, really worth it to do it. And as you said, as I also always recommend, start tiny, 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 so you can make a step that you can actually maintain. That is such a good point. Okay, thank you so much, Andrea. But before we wrap up, I'd love for you to share your program or anything you're working on, and where people can connect with you online as well.
Great. So thank you for asking that. So we have been talking about my food freedom formula, and I have actually the Food Freedom Foundation workshop, which basically helps you to immediately implement 3 steps to achieve permanent weight loss without falling off. It's a small little workshop, very practical, also with more tips. And you actually get what I mentioned earlier, how to implement easy habits right into your life, plus how to overcome negative mindset when you kind of think you cannot reach it, and so on. So it's called Food Freedom Foundation Workshop. You're going to share the link, I guess, here. And then I have my website. It's wellnessmethods.com. And I'm also with the handle Wellness Methods, findable on most of the social media like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. So you can check me out. And if you want also, I mentioned a couple of resources earlier. So if you're interested in some of those resources, just send me a message on any of those, and I would love to help you with that.
Thank you so much, Andrea. This has been a fantastic episode, and I know it's really, really going to help really busy working homeschool moms to learn to start having a better relationship with food, and obviously in that way practice more self-care. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks, Charlotte, for having me. And for everybody, please believe me, I managed to overcome all these issues. So can you. So just do it, start small, and go for small, consistent improvements. Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Please let me know what your greatest takeaway was. You can reach out to me on Instagram at charlottejones247 or on my website at mylittlehomeschool.com, or you could even drop me an email at hello@mylittlehomeschool.com. I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It will help spread the news about being a working homeschool mom, and in that way we can build this wonderful supportive community together. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care.